Joining me today on the People Business Podcast, I have Todd Barnhart. Todd is CEO and President of Gardner. He is majority owner of Gardner, and his company is one of the top HVAC energy solution providers in the entire industry. So I'm excited to have Todd here with me today. Todd, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. This is my first official podcast, so I'm exceptionally nervous.
Well, we'll get that over with real fast, right? So let's talk about like your company, how you got here. I'm excited to go down this road because I love your story. I think the audience is going to love it also. So when we think about Gardner, like you guys are just kicking ass, number one, right? Your company is super strong. You know, I love your culture. I love the people that work there. Has it always been that way, or how did you get it, to where it is today?
Oh, no, that's a good question. No, I think it really started kind of, with this entrepreneurial spirit from Bill Gardiner. I mean, he started it in 1962. He's a veteran. He's got that mentality. And he really started at that point from day one instilling this notion of kind of family first, do the right thing, no surprises. Those are the kind of the mantras that we kind of always speak. And so as the years have passed and the industry has changed dramatically, as you're aware of, new personalities came in, but always that kind of underlying mantra of family first was in the background. And then, when I started there, I've been there for 27 years after engineering school. I was kind of indoctrinated into that right off the jump, and really saw that we don't make widgets, we have people, right? Mm-hmm. And so really focusing on the people. So the only thing that I probably have added over the last few years is maybe a little bit wider vision of where I think Gardner can go, and really, kind of following his lead of getting the best people, training them. As you know, we spend a lot of money on training and then kind of getting out of the way.
Yeah.
And that's been good.
Well, you see a lot of companies who have that family dynamic, that family first feel, but then as they grow, they lose it over time because they get big, right? And then they kind of lost sight of what got them to where they are. But you guys, I mean, you've had, like I was reading this morning, like 14 years in a row, you guys have been on the top workplace, like at the top of the list of that in like 14 years in a row, like one of 6 companies in Ohio to do that, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. And then like the only company that's not in the mega group, which is like 1,000 employees or higher.
Right.
Like, how have you been able to keep that though with your extraordinary growth?
Yeah, no, I don't know exactly. No, it's been I think it's been a little more of the same and a little bit of kind of injection of some creativity and maybe some things that would be more typical in business. For example, so we've always had that theory of, like I said, family first, but once Bill kind of passed the torch to me and the team that's there now, we started injecting some things into the business that allowed our people to really understand how they're performing, using some metrics, kind of holding each other accountable a little bit more. And I think, some of the old fashioned way of thinking in business that we still did, and then taking advantage of some of the new things. Some people say traction or these other things. We don't really use that, but, really kind of using what works with us, whether it's financial metrics, whether it's, empowering our team leads a little bit more, all of those things really led to some of those top workplace things again. And I think, more so than we ever have had in the past, our leadership now really encourages and empowers our management from, we always talk about leading up and down the chain of command.
Yeah.
And we really encourage that. And I think people are feeling, empowered. They like where they do for work, and we're not perfect, but we're always striving to be. So,
well, the one thing I love about you guys is you just said it, is we're always striving to be like, I think we're in an industry that has experienced a great economy over the last 3 to 4 years. And a lot of people and leaders out there, they start to read their press clippings almost to think like, oh, we're already great. Why would we be interested and continue to put work in? And as a former athlete, you were a former athlete. You played football. You played football at Ohio State, didn't you?
No, kind of sat
the bench, but you were still there. I mean, you were experienced at the highest of high levels. So you've been with Gardner now, what, 20, you said 27 years?
27 years.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, it's part of that culture. In school, when I saw that some of the sports things weren't going to work, I got into engineering. Really liked engineering. I came to work at Gardner. My father actually was a new system sales engineer for 47 years. So I'd kind of worked growing up in that business and said, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to be a civil engineer. That's what I am.
Okay.
And he said, well, they need sales engineers here. Why don't you try that? And so that's what I did, and kind of came into the Cleveland office. My dad was in the Akron office, and then just worked my way up from there. And so it was really my whole background is, a testament to exactly that kind of family first, hard work, just kind of great people around me, just kind of lucky at the same time. It worked out. Yeah.
And I love that story, and I think it should be something that I want to highlight on this podcast. Is number one, you started in the company as a sales engineer, and now you're the majority owner. So that is still something that can be done in the world today, right? What do you think helped you get to where you are today? Like, what are if you had to say like one or two things like that you would say your special sauce, like the things that really helped you grow through the industry, what would you say they are?
Yeah, I have to think about that. I think consistency. I have kids in college, and I think a lot of people work with young people is the willingness to be consistent every day, work hard every single day. I think that's important. I was really blessed to have unbelievable mentors around me, like Bob Case, Bill Gardiner. Just folks that are totally different than I am, but were experts in what they did, and then really allowed me to kind of say, hey, I really like what they do there. Oh, I might do that a little differently. And they were really open for me to kind of do what I thought I needed to do, whether it's a new business venture at Gardner or try to pursue a different kind of work. They let me fail. I think that's important. That's a little hard today. Everybody thinks, I think, in society that we have the right to succeed, but we also have the right to fail. And so I think we need to look for those opportunities, take a few risks, make some, mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes. And we encourage that today. If we're not making mistakes, not horrible mistakes, but if we're not making mistakes, we're not pushing the envelope hard enough. And we encourage people to kind of spread their wings a little bit.
So do you think that's part of the fact that you're like your culture is so, you guys are strong and you have a good culture, but at the same time, people are not scared to fail in a way. Like they're encouraged to push it and learn from it, right? If it doesn't work.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think if you asked, in some of these surveys that get you top workplace kind of deal with all that. But I would hope that if you asked any of our associates, they would feel like, hey, we've been moving in a direction that is kind of vibrant. And I do feel like, I can kind of spread my wings, make mistakes, and kind of explore, my position, my career. Not everybody wants that. Some people really want to come in and kind of, hey, let me know what you expect from me. Just let me do that.
Right.
Which is great. You need all,
Sure.
all types and sizes. But we have some, especially in some young people. I think it's an important thing to comment about, is that we hear, and I think everybody in business, you probably hear it with your clients, oh, the young generation, they don't know how to work. They don't do things right. We hear it a little bit in our company. I disagree a lot, vehemently with that.
So do I.
I think some of the young people that we have now are the best people that we've ever seen. I think they work as hard as anybody else does. They work differently sometimes, but they're much quicker to the starting line than people ever were before. They come in way more prepared. That's one of the things that I talk to my kids about all the time is be on time, be prepared, be respectful. And I think these kids, when they come in already up to speed with technology, kind of already, have already studied, that's being prepared. And so I feel strongly that the generation that's coming, at least for Gardner, is better, tomorrow than it is today.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Be on time, be prepared, be respectful. So would you say maybe those were the big three for you?
Well, that's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. Yeah.
I would have to, because those are so crucial. What did you learn from those mentors that you mentioned earlier? Like that you still, the one maybe thing that sticks in your mind that you learned, like this is something that is relevant and we must continue to do moving our company forward.
Yeah. From Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So from Bill Gardiner, I learned a lot of things, but specifically, he treats everybody exactly the same.
Really?
So I really value that. He's been very successful in all the ways you measure success, but you would never know it. And so I hope that you would see that at Gardner, is that, we're not drinking coffee out of China. We're pretty blue collar, but everybody's treated exactly the same. Whether it's from the financial people that we work with for the 401k, our people, our parts driver has the same access to financial advice that I have personally. So, that's a big thing I learned from him. From Bob Case, what I really learned was consistency. Be the same person every day. Not everybody loves decisions you make or maybe the way you do things, but they can at least count on it every day. Not one day you're, high, one day you're low. Be consistent. And I think those are the two main things I learned from them.
That's such an important thing, the word consistency, right? Because when we think about consistency, we live in a inconsistent world where it's just every day, the people we work with, the things we experience, it could be great, but then the exact same experience 5 days later could be completely horrific, right? And people, I think that's what really attracts people today is consistency, right? Can we be consistent? And that's one of the things that, we're working on, with Gardner, right? With you guys is how can we improve that consistency? Every employee, peer to peer, right? Department to department, where it's the same experience. And you guys have worked really hard at that. You've done really well with improving that internally also. But I can see that's your vision. That's part of your leadership, and it shows throughout your company, which is cool.
Well, good. And since you mentioned like working with you guys, I think we're doing okay. You've really done a good job kind of presenting to our teams. I think we can do better. But the biggest thing I have to admit, I think we talked about this. I thought when we originally met about what you're teaching everybody and teaching our team of how much business and how it's going to connect with our clients so much better, which it does. It's great. But it's really more, remember I talked to one of your other clients checking on you.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, all that's true, but the benefit that he got was really how his people talk to each other. And then he had a large organization too. And I've really seen that benefit. It's starting to come. I'd like it to pick up a little bit more. I think it's a work in progress. But like everything, I think companies, like you said earlier, that really want to grow and improve, are you ever going to master it? You're never going to master it. You're always going to keep working to that. But I see the benefit, and one of the things it's kind of an ancillary benefit, I guess, is that when people or associates get stressed and they go the other way a little bit, they violate our never and always a little, list. It gives us an easy platform to talk to them about it. Hey, you got this thing. What do you think? Oh man, I screwed that up, kind of thing. Right. So that's good. That's not weeks or months or emails of backing and forthing. It's just a quick conversation, so it's been really good. Thank you.
Yeah. Pleasure.
Yeah.
I think about, and I go back to consistency again, and, you're like me, like, you invest time every day in your health and your wellness, right? You invest time into learning, right? And if you were inconsistent with those things, you wouldn't have the results, right? If you're not consistent with what you do, like if you go and you work out, let's say, I'll work out once every 2 weeks. What's is that going to provide what you want? No, and when I think back to football, for example, I always love this analogy. It's like, imagine a team that went out there and never practiced their playbook.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, how consistent would you be? If you never, like my son's baseball team right now, like all they do is play games, and they don't practice fundamentals, and then the same errors keep happening because they never get practice time, right? So you think about that, and I imagine you probably took a lot of what you learned in business from your career in sports also, right? In terms of consistency, blocking, tackling, fundamentals.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think everybody that participates in that kind of endeavor sees, you've had, what's the great thing about sports? And I'm sure there's a lot of vocations or other hobbies or things that people are passionate about that you can get these lessons. But the great thing is that you fail a lot, right? And then you still have to go to practice. You still have to work out. You still have to work as a team. And that's the other thing is, working as a team. That's, a great thing. And within a team, whether it's football or business or any team, there's folks that are different positions. You have folks that are linemen and you have folks that are quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You understand, leadership really understands where to apply that. And, just like in sports and business, sometimes we're really good at seeing, hey, you'd be really good, Frank, at this position. Other times we think we have a good idea and it doesn't work out. You got to really kind of be willing to pivot and move. And, another thing in sports is the willingness to change off your game plan if it's not working. Mm-hmm. Halftime, hey, it's not working. What should we do? Right. Some businesses, especially, I think ones that have, and you talked about this, ones that are quote unquote established, say, well, this game plan's always worked. We'll just keep doing that, just more of that. We definitely are not like that. Yeah, we definitely want to keep looking for the next thing. If there's another idea, whether, Rob McKinley is my partner and CFO, and when I myself say all the time, if there's something, a decision we make that you don't like, tell us. If there's something, and we've had a couple of those where we've, people said, that was a dumb idea. Okay, and this is what we should do instead. And we're like, let's do that. We'll change. And so the willingness for leadership to not have ego so big to be, can't admit when we make mistakes was critical.
I respect that so much about you guys. Like, you are willing to embrace ideas that maybe aren't your own. In the fact of, you don't need to be the smartest guy in the room, right? And like,
I'm usually not.
Same here, right?
Yeah.
And if I was, I'm in the wrong room.
That's right.
Right. But I see that with you guys of how like interacting with you and everyone embracing ideas and sharing, and I like that, and how you guys go about that. But that takes, I think, also being secure with who you are, right, as a leader.
Yeah, and I think it passes. It's a good discussion topic, because I think that one of the things that practicing does, whether it's sports or working on training, dealing like with some conflict resolution things, all those things, is our business, like all businesses, but construction industry is maybe unique because everything's different. Like you said, every day is different. Not every boiler room or mechanical room is the same. Not every job's the same. Is that I noticed that when we practice more, when those issues come up, we get better at them in real time, just like you do. That's why you practice in sports, right?
Absolutely.
And I think also what I've noticed is that one of the attributes I think maybe that I'm good at is, for years, at times people get emotional or sensational about a situation, and people would run in the room, everything's on fire. And we'd sit and they'd leave, and then they come back. Okay, it's not on fire. It's just real smoky. And then they'd leave and they come back. And so I think our team has seen the leadership especially kind of take situations, because things happen, and say, not react emotionally, kind of say, hey, what did we learn about this? Or, hey, remember we did this training? Let's go through that. And just, pick a path, methodically problem solve and go through. But we're the same when we close a multi-million-dollar job and it's really good. We act very similarly as when maybe something's not so good. And I think that consistency, again, is something that our people see. And I see that them starting to act that way. I hear less emotion, this more, working through the problem. And so I think that's great.
Well, all that starts at the top.
Yeah,
I guess yeah. It starts at the top. So, you lead by example with that. I've never seen you get emotional, so to speak. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're always very even, whether it's good or bad, right? And I think that translates to your team, because you start to see them as you're speaking to, act, in the same way over time. You mentioned something, I think it's really important. I don't want to forget it. You mentioned failure. And for me personally, what I thought were the greatest failures of my life were actually the greatest blessings, because I grew from them in a way. And now I look back and say, thank God that happened. Thank God I failed. But I want to ask you, like, what is one failure in your life that has led to exponential success?
In the business front, for sure, one of the largest failures. So, just a little history. So, a new system sales, we're 1099. Our guys are all 1099. So, our industry is kind of like that. And there's the good thing about that is that if you do really well, you can make a fair amount of money. The bad thing, obviously, if you don't do well, you make nothing, and you have no insurance, you have no expense account, nothing, right? No retirement. So that's the way all of our new system sales guys are today. That's the way I was for 19 years. And so I was successful in that, and I really done pretty well. So that afforded me enough money to do investments and other things. And at that time, I got in with some guys doing some investments down in Florida, and we had the worst case scenario, which is the first thing we did. We built some townhomes in Naples, sold them for a bunch of money, and we're like, man, we're awesome at this. We're so good at this. This is all we need to do. It wasn't much of money invested. There was a construction component, which I understood. We had a CPA, so he understood the finance. We had some other folks involved. And so we went to the next one. At that time, hurricanes, banking closures, just all kinds of disaster. So it ended up costing me a fair amount of money to kind of work through the end. More than that, just the time, the aggravation, the stress, for over about a year or two. And that really led me to this understanding that was effectively my master's degree, my doctorate in business, what goes well, what goes bad. I learned a lot from some other developers, some other folks who were a lot smarter than me. And then the other thing I learned was, at one point I was so anxious about everything. Like, this is just going to be so thinking about what if this happens and the other thing happens, then, in the future, this is going to be bad, as opposed to like in sports, you hear it all the time, one play at a time. Just deal with what you can deal with right there. So we kind of, I took all that, and I really, and I've adopted some things at Gardner. One, anytime we have an investment or anything, everybody in every investment, you've been offered some of this stuff, I'm sure, is, hey, this is how if it goes great, this is how much you're going to do. This is how much it's going to grow. It's going to be great. You're going to have all these people, but there's steps and of more risk. And I'm really cognizant of each one of those steps, what the exit is. What if it goes bad at that point? Can I live with that? Right. When we were doing the investments, we didn't think that way. We were just looking at, well, if it's not so great, if it's just 20% off that, it's still really good. Well, what if it's 80% off? Right. And so now at Gardner, and some might, I don't think it's conservative necessarily. I do think it's just more prudent, is that if we're doing something, any kind of investment, we're looking at the benefit, but we're understanding at those clear exit points. If we were going to change direction here, can we live with that cost? Can we live with that? What if it costs, now it's, money is always important, but what if it costs a new investment and we bring on 50 people? What if it costs us 50 people? Now that's a much bigger price to pay.
Absolutely.
Right. So I can tell you right now, I would not be comfortable with that. If it was the money, okay, maybe I'd be comfortable with that. But so we look at that. And then the other thing is going through that is what I learned from that is if you went into a relationship or a partnership or a deal, understanding the way things were, both sides agreed, hey, Frank, you're going to give me this, I'm going to give you that. This is how we work together. And the deal changes. Maybe it's out of your control. Maybe it's something you did, something I did. When the deal changes, it changes. And so when we get into those situations today, if it changes, we call it changed, and we go to our partners, whoever, and say, hey, this changed. So we both entered this way. Now it's this. We need to figure out what this is. Now, back then, we kept on working with the banks and said, well, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And we used hope, and it just never did. So that was one of, back to your question, that was probably on the business side, one of the best things that I ever learned, because we got through it great, figured it out, got my doctorate, paid for that, and then applied all the time in a business that's, probably healthier because of it at Gardner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. That's interesting. There's a lot there. And now you're working with people and you are constantly evaluating where things lie, where you could leave at, what changed, probably communicating more effectively, whereas, it'll just improve, right? As opposed to, hey, we need to talk, but we need to get on the same page and align again. So there's so much there, so many great takeaways from that. failure. I think everyone, and I agree with you, I think people need to fail more in society, because how do you learn?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you learn without failing?
Yeah, it's an interesting, I don't think you do. But I was just thinking when you were just saying that, I was thinking, maybe it's something, we don't measure it really. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. It'd be interesting to know with some of our young people, because we always encourage it, and we, not, hey, we want you to fail, but we encourage them to push themselves. And I wonder if we should look at a way to kind of understand, where they're at and what they're pushing and their failures. Are they constructive? Are they getting them? I don't know. It's maybe a subject for another day, but it just kind of popped in my head. Maybe there's something else we could do there in our business. We spent a lot of time the last 2 years building a lot of metrics and really trying to understand the business. I know some people would say, we could fuse that and say it's corporate.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. It allows us to make real-time decisions, instead of real-time guesses. And so we do that every day. We look at it every day, and it really gives our technician on the South team to be able to have a conversation with his team lead of, hey, that ABC account, XYZ account, that seems like a great account. Is it? Well, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Here's why. And now we always kind of corroborate suspicion.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I wonder if we could do that with kind of the failure side, but no.
We can talk more about that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think there's some things there that you could do. Absolutely. When we think about this industry, and you came into it and you've been in it now, almost 30 years, right? So, I mean, you think about it, I always look back at because I came into it with zero industry experience whatsoever. I was kind of an outsider coming into the industry. But is there anything that stands out? I love hearing humor in our industry. Is there anything that stands out in terms of one or two things maybe that pops in your mind of like an event that you found maybe the funniest thing you've seen in this industry, something that you think about, something that it just you share with your team, and it just to lighten the mood?
Yeah, I have two. One I'll clean up a little bit, but we didn't talk about these questions before, so it must be legit because it popped in my head when you asked that. So I had a customer who was a pipe fitter who was extremely Irish.
Okay.
The accent and everything else. I was a new system sales engineer, and I sold him, and I kept this voicemail for years. I'm upset I lost it. But we sold him fan coils, and I don't know if you know fan coils, but fan coils are these little terminal devices, and at the end of it, they have these piping kits that are very small, and you got to braze and put things in there, and it's very small, and he's a big guy. And the voicemail that he left me, which I kept for years, was, and his name was Jerry. He's like, Todd, this is Jerry. I want to know if you included and I'm going to say the correct word, the little people. Can you get that? And I'm like, what the heck is he saying? He's like, because I can't get my hands in the effing, thing. You must have little people to be able to raise this. So I kept that forever. And I always thought that was interesting. And then the other one that I had was I had a client, an owner of a retail property that had a bank in it that was screaming at me. I was a young salesman screaming at me. There's a problem. These units never worked. You got to get over it. I couldn't get a tech out right away. It's a hot day like it is today. So I drove over there. Good for all young people to know. That's what we do. When somebody's yelling and screaming at you, do an email or call, go see them. So drove over there. And when I got there, as we were walking around the building, he was really upset, very upset, cursing at me and everything. And when I got over to where the condensing units were put, they were a little split system. I could see there was a parapet that was built that was a little small. And because of that, the condensing unit was bigger, and the contractor definitely couldn't make the pipe connections, so he flipped it upside down. So the condensing unit was upside down with the pipe coming out the bottom, And right when he saw it, because I could tell he hadn't been up there, he was the building owner, he kind of like, that's not right, is it? And I'm like, that is not right. Then there's no way it's going to work. So with my team, once in a while, if somebody messes up something or we do something stupid, which definitely happens, we have that picture somewhere still, and I've seen it pop up because I snapped one. At least it's not upside down.
At least it's not upside down. Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
great.
Yeah.
Well, I think you got to have humor, right? I mean, like it's so easy to take everything so serious, but it's only air conditioning, right? It's only at the end of the day, it's not life or death.
No.
And I think it's important to keep humor in the day because it keeps it light, and it keeps us on our toes and it keeps the day fun. Speaking of fun and enjoyable, I truly believe that it's really hard to be good at anything in life unless you enjoy doing it. You agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think if it's not, if you're not having fun, why else do it? And I know people say, and it's probably true, hey, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And I get all that, but there's always a component of work in everything you do. I know even today, and I can say this was pretty consistent through my career, there was probably 10 or 15% of my job I hate. You know what I mean? Things, attorneys, things like that. Right. To my friends out there that are attorneys, I don't mean you, I mean the other attorneys, but no.
Yeah, the other guys.
And then there's probably, if that's 15 or 10 or 15%, there's probably 70, 80% that, are just part of the job. And then there's, the last bit, whatever 15 or 20% that's left that I can't live without. Right. And that's the part that I think everybody works for, that kind of overshadows that first 15% for sure. And I think, if there's, young people or people that are in those positions, if they're really grinding on that 80% to the point where they think that's what their job is and they haven't discovered that 20% they can't live without, then maybe they should do something else or, really research that a little bit more, because I think that's critical. I'm really happy because I do hear from people that visit Gardner and from our people that people are laughing. People seem to be having more fun than ever. So that's great.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of what you do today? You're the owner of the company. You've started, as a sales engineer. You've experienced the growth, the expansion, everything that's happened over the last 30 years. What's your favorite part of what you do today?
I have two big ones.
Okay.
And that specific, there are two instances that are popping in my head, but I'll kind of give the overall is, I love when we as a kind of a group, my job is basically kind of suggest the strategic direction. Hey, here's my kind of crystal ball, whatever. And I think, this is, we get there, what do you think? Yeah, looks good, tweaks or whatever. And then see the team go off and execute without direction. We're giving them, I don't know, like bumpers in the lane, but for them to come back and create within that is always, it's always way better than what I would have come up with.
That's awesome.
And then another one is just, I love the kind of the strength and fortitude of many in our team. Recently we had in our billing department, the person that leads that, Carol, is a rock star. She's been there as long as I have. She's excellent. But she had somebody that wanted to leave, just leave the position. It happens. Never begrudge anybody for, doing what they think they have to do for their lives and everything. And she's busy. We're really busy. So I emailed her and I said, hey, I know that, we'll look for somebody to help you, keep your head up, those things. And her response was really abrupt. And it was totally Carol. She's like, totally, no problem. I totally got this. Don't worry. Right. I love that strength and fortitude.
Yeah.
And if Carol, she totally has it. Right. Yeah. So I love that, kind of that attitude, the next man up. And so those two things, I think, are the things that, are the 20%.
That's amazing. So the fact that you've empowered your team and they have autonomy to be able to go out there and make decisions within the goalposts, the guidelines, so to speak, that they go out and they execute. And that is like to be in your position where you don't have to walk around and like every single person's asking you the most minute questions and as opposed to thinking, right? Your people are thinking and executing and showing, fortitude and strength. That's awesome.
That's great. And so if that's what, as long as I still, and I don't know why I wouldn't, but as long as I still enjoy that, I'll definitely keep my job.
Yeah.
For a while.
What's one thing that is a part of you that maybe a lot of people don't know?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I've challenged with in my life is I have kind of this feeling of I'm not good enough.
Okay.
And so this kind of, and I think that would surprise people to know that, because I've been pretty successful.
Very successful.
Yeah, right. So it's the thing that at one point in my life drove me maybe too much, impacted my relationship with my wife, at one point. And so it's something I work on every day, wanting to be the leader that I expect to be, and look out for our people and all of that. But it has driven me for years. And over the last 10 or so years, I've gotten to be where that's kind of in check per se. But I think that's one thing that, is kind of, has driven me over the years. It's a shortcoming that I have.
That's very interesting. I was in a seminar yesterday on that whole, the word just escaped me, but it was that whole basically limiting belief. It's escaped me, but it's the idea of super successful people a lot of times have this critic, right? It's this limiting self-doubt type thing going on. And it's like you don't see yourself sometimes internally as the outside world sees you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think maybe that's what you're talking, because I same thing. Like I've dealt with that, still deal with that, have to keep that in check.
Mm-hmm.
I deal with it with a lot of self-talk positively.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any tricks, tips out there for people? Because I think we all experience that. And the more successful you get, sometimes the more that talk is like, you have to be cognizant and conscious of what you're saying to yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think it's backing up a little bit of background. So I did for a long time. I evaluated or asked a question of people that I perceived or I knew were very successful, whether it was sports or a coach or in business or just guys that I knew and girls that I knew that were really good. And I asked them one question was, do you enjoy winning more, or do you not fear losing, hate losing? And the ones I could say definitively, everyone that I would view as, because not everybody asked were like what I perceived were excellent at whatever. Sometimes I'd ask somebody that was maybe I saw a little chink in the armor, maybe.
Sure.
All the people, and that's why I took a moment to reflect. All the people that were what I consider just excellent or driven to be excellent hated losing. Not one said, "Oh, I enjoy winning." And the ones that I thought were a little fake, some of them said they enjoyed winning. So that was where I think some of this, not self-doubt, but maybe this not measuring up, because winning for a long time, and I'm getting to your question, almost like rotted my soul. I mean, losing. If I lost a job, if I did something, I would be like, how did I make sure that never happens again? I was really get over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I would learn from it. And like we said, you got to fail to learn, but I almost was too much. So now when I go through that, if we have a mistake at the company or there's something that or I could have been a better dad because my daughter got mad about something that I thought she shouldn't and caught me at a bad time. Now I kind of, instead of getting so totalistic about her, so emphatic, I kind of like, all right, is this in the grand scheme, bring it back to live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things, losing this, is it so detrimental? What can I learn? And kind of just rounding the edges a little bit. So the self-talk I do now is more, calm yourself down a little bit.
Yes.
Not everybody's can be as neurotic maybe as you are inside a little bit. And so I think those are the things that I work now on the most, and it's
interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's really been helpful actually when I started thinking more that way, and people felt maybe, because I think whenever I get in that situation where in the past, maybe I was in a situation where I was losing in work or whatever it was, people like, I'll stay away from him a little bit.
Right.
They could see, you could start feeling the heat.
Sure.
And then that's not any good. So then when I've got that under control, the people would say, well, yeah, but maybe if we did this next time, or is it really gone? Or can we really do this? So we actually got better. So I think it's that self-talk that I work on.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And that fear of losing is,
but not fear. the hate of it.
Hate.
Because fear of losing, I think when people are afraid of losing, they're hesitant to take risks.
Yes.
They don't want to walk across the street. That I don't have a problem with. But it's when you walk across the street and you get clipped or something like that in that bad example, it's the hatred of it. Yeah. And when you win, and my wife always used to joke because we would sell, I started our solutions division many years ago at Gardner, and we'd be pursuing these large jobs and we'd get one, go to the board meeting and present, and we finally get the contract. And she's like, you don't even celebrate that. I know I'm like, it's the most anticlimactic day. It was the pursuit. So that's one thing that we're trying to work on now, because that's the way I think, and that's the way some of our best salespeople think and our best leaders think, is that maybe it'd be good to celebrate wins a little bit more. So we're trying to work on that. We're going to talk a lot about that next week. Good. Yeah. Good. We need it. We need it.
Oh man, that is such good content though, and information, because I think a lot of people struggle with that, and it's that absolute hatred of losing. And you never take the moment and the time to take a step back, and nobody wants to, it's like, okay, let's celebrate. But you experience championship teams, and, I've studied a lot of, championship coaches, and they said, we're going to take the moment and we're going to celebrate this win together as a team. And then we're going to get back to work tomorrow on, what we need to do to get better for the next event or whatever it is. Right.
Right.
But I think it is important to celebrate success in a way that showcases like a winning culture is about celebrating success, like having great if you never take that time, it can turn into a grind, can it? It just go, as opposed to taking a step back and say, wow, we've done some great things, I just read this book. It's called The Gap and the Gain. And that's me. I've always looked at life as like the gap and the gain. So here's where we need to go next, right? Here's where we are today. This is the gap. So it's always focusing on, we need to get here, go, as opposed to what have we gained in the last 5 years, right? And thinking about the success and the wins. So taking that mindset of, we still need to focus on this, but at the same time, boy, we've done some amazing things. We need to take a step back and think about it, right?
Yeah, no, I think, and we have that came up this morning actually, because when's this coming on? Are you publishing this?
We'll put this out probably in a week or two, I would imagine.
I think I can say it. I don't know. Maybe I'll be vague. But so one of those awards we talked about before, we just got notice that we won again. So that's fantastic, right? And so my HR leader came to my office this morning, and we're trying to celebrate. We get some T-shirts to celebrate a win.
Yeah.
And so she's suggesting, I think we'll let them know by a week. Not everybody in the company is going to listen to this. So yeah, so we'll be all right. But she was suggesting on the 5th of July that a lot of people are calling off. It's I don't know if you look, but the 4th of July is on a Thursday. Friday, everybody's going to take off. But we're going to, she's like, I think we should disclose the office, So we're going to check and see and celebrate that notoriety, that victory.
Gotcha.
And so my initial reaction, I don't enjoy winning as much as I hate losing. So I was like, no, we're going to work that day. But after going through it and thinking about it, we kind of decided we're going to probably take that day off, as long as we don't have too many teams out, because guys are, service techs are always working.
I was like, yeah, they never.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's a little bit of a celebration.
Especially at 95-degree heat.
It's going to be, right? The next couple of days is going to be,
yeah.
Guys are going to be earning their money. So yeah. So that's a little bit of a celebration.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, man, I tell you what, it's been great working with you and talking with you and learning from you, and I really appreciate, working with you guys. And I always tell people I get to learn more than I think I learn more than the companies I work with, which is really cool, and that's what it's about, right? Anything else we should be talking about today? Any last words?
No, I mean, I think, and thank you for including me in this. This is cool. This is my first podcast, like I said at the beginning ever. So, this is kind of cool.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. It's fun. It's just a conversation, right? Yeah. We're starting them at Gardner. We had our first one last week. I mentioned it to some of the guys here, but kind of an internal, we're still dealing with people that don't know everything we do. So we have a lot of new people. So we're working on that. But no, I really appreciate what you're doing and helping our team. We're opening a new office in Fort Wayne. So now that culture piece starting to be spread out a little bit. How do we make sure that we're still communicating? New people, new faces. How do you keep, the push-ups every morning? Yes, with all that. So I'm sure we'll keep you busy, but no, I really appreciate it. This was good.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh yeah. No, thank you. This is great.
Todd, my man.
All right.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.